In that intolerable conflict, you lose all joy of life and all feeling of personality, because at every moment they suppress and restrain and check the free play of your powers. And that is the poisoned and mortal wound of the civilized world. What is this shift that is happening in the world today? I've found that most people want the freedom to be able to go down the shop and buy their food. They want the freedom to be able to buy a house somewhere. They want the freedom to work at whatever job they wish to work at. Freedom to marry who they please, drive whatever car they would like to drive, and to run whatever business they would like to run. And they're prepared to pay whatever costs are incurred by doing all of these things. But of course, all of these things also include the freedom to pay taxes, the freedom to do what you're told, and the freedom to walk between the lines and follow whatever rules the politicians give you to follow. I mean, why do you have to buy a house? Why shouldn't you be given a house simply because you're alive? Why do you have to pay to be alive? If you wish to marry someone, why do you need to purchase a marriage license and get the government involved and turn it into a three-way contract? Isn't it between you and the person you love? If so, why do you need to get the government involved? Well, that's right, it's because of the economic value that's attached to your love, to your wedding, and it's information you may need in the settlement should you ever get divorced, because you need to look at all the economics of the whole thing. But really, what does economics have to do with love? And if you're going to place conditions on the person that you're marrying and you wish to create a prenuptial agreement and all of this sort of stuff, well, do you really love the person? Or is your marriage simply a matter of economics? But that's what freedom is to people. It's freedom to conduct their life in an economic manner. Freedom to purchase what they want to purchase. Freedom to be enslaved to a corporate system. And what it also means for many people is the freedom to point and complain about all these control mechanisms while demanding their freedom. But really, what freedom is it that they're wanting? What is this freedom for most people? Because most people don't actually want to be free. Most people simply want to complain about not being free, but they don't actually want to be free, because freedom is 100% self-responsibility. That's what freedom is. It certainly isn't anything else. I mean, it isn't freedom of choice. Freedom of choice is part of freedom, but freedom of choice is not freedom. Freedom is 100% liability for all your actions, everything you say and do. That's what true freedom is. True freedom is owning yourself and being responsible for that. And what I've found is that most people, even those who complain the loudest about not being free, and in fact especially those who complain the loudest about not being free, are absolutely terrified of true freedom. Technology isn't freedom. I'd like to be free enough to not have to log onto the computer every day and go on the air every week gently asking people to wake up before we head into a nightmare transhumanist world where all freedom is lost. I much prefer not to have to do that, and so I personally can't wait until people wake up to the fact that they actually are free, should they choose to be so. It's time for us all to get together. We've got to stop fighting amongst ourselves. We've got to stop looking for the one perfect remedy that's going to be given to us on a silver platter. We've got to start thinking about ourselves, realize that remedy starts at home. It starts in your own heart. No one can come and fix your life for you. No one can offer you a system that's going to work, because it's a control system, whatever it is. If it's a system, then it's a control system. And we don't need a control system. What we need is to always operate from our hearts in all that we do, to live in a state of service for creation, but also putting ourselves on an equal par with everybody else. Don't give too much credit to people around you who claim to be your controllers, because ultimately they're no different to you. And don't give the system too much credit. Don't perceive that it is this all-empowering thing that can come and devour you, because just that belief will make it so. And once people gain that understanding alone, it's an incredibly empowering understanding. We're seeing a time in history when mankind remembers who and what we are. When we remember our connection to the planet, when we begin to understand and remember our connection to all reality and to all creation. and we begin to remember the power that we have to bring about positive change. So my question is, do you feel free now? And if you don't, then what will it take to make you feel free? And if you ever are free, what will you do with that freedom? You're obliged to pretend respect for people. This whole stuff happens because we tolerate wrong behaviour and we allow criminals to just do what they do, and we believe all this rubbish they write on paper actually means something. It's unprecedented. We've never seen anything like it. All theatre for the masses, folks, just to keep people distracted and make people think that politics actually means something and that you're actually doing something to improve the situation when you're not. But if you just put it in the headlines like that and bring it to the people, then you can make a big fuss about something so it can be swept under the carpet later and lost amongst the new headlines, which of course is what the majority of all of this political theatre and political rhetoric is for in the first place. But again, so much of it is simply distraction. I mean, the human race is ridiculous when you look at it. You know, if you step back and look at the whole thing, the whole monkey show, it really does look like a monkey show. It's like a circus, folks. You've got this race of people just squabbling amongst each other, arguing over who's the best leader, who isn't the best leader, manufacturing wars against each other, dropping bombs on each other, starving each other, just doing all sorts of outrageous things against each other. Most of it is simply distraction. And of course, looking at it a little deeper, it also becomes very apparent that most of the wars that we've been fighting in the last 100 years, 150 years, have not been fought under the pretext that we think they've been fought for. What they've been mostly about has been simply to erase history, to bomb the infrastructure, to bomb the cities. That's why when countries go to war, it isn't the leaders going to war with each other. What they do is they go and they decimate all of the architecture and all of the old structures that were there from the previous civilizations. That's what most of this has been about. But yeah, that's the current state of the world, folks. It really is a joke when you look at it. You know, and attempting to find a way out of this mess, I mean, it becomes almost an impossible task when you look at just how far humanity has strayed from their path. There are still a lot of good people attempting to suggest better options for humanity and suggest better ways we could do things, but as a whole, the human race has most certainly lost its way. Look at the way we used to do things. Even some of the most simple people on earth, the way we used to do things was so much more efficient and so much more beneficial than anything we seem to be doing today with all of the things we have at our disposal, all the technology, all the stuff we have. You know, we really should be going in a positive direction, but if you look at the human race, we're just not. It's just this massive circus of infighting and squabbling and wars and political rhetoric and social rhetoric, and nothing which really helps the human experience at all. A lot of people feel like they need to do more. You know, people who are good people in their own lives and they're doing what they can to survive. They're living in a conscious way. They're not ripping people off to survive. They're doing what they can, but they feel like they need to be doing more. And it's by realizing these sort of things and realizing how short this experience really is, and all the little things we do that we think mean something very often don't. They may be important to us at the time, but if you look back at your life, you'll find that a lot of the things that you thought were really important, that you really had to get done, were not important at all. They weren't about you. They weren't about the world. They weren't about improving life on this earth. They were simply some little insignificant goal that you thought meant something at the time, but it didn't. Ultimately, it didn't. You know, and really what this is about is the journey. That's what life is about, ladies and gentlemen. It's about the journey. It's about what you do to improve the human experience along the way, your own experience and the experience of others. How much you find yourself, and in finding yourself, how much you're able to find and connect with others. That's one of the most important things, because when you look at the world, you look at what we've become, you look at all of this technology, where it's leading us. As I've very often said, it's taking our life skills from us. It's taking all of the data from us. It's like this huge smart grid which is gathering the data for the human experience, correlating all the data to see what the current state of human consciousness is at the end of this cycle. And it's removing our life skills from us is one of the most important things to see in this. And there's so much good in technology. There's so much good stuff we can do with it. But it's got such a hold over us now that even by people attempting to make a difference in the world, it's very difficult to stop the smart grid from where it's going. It's going to be very, very difficult to stop this rolling out because it just has really gotten hold of people, and it's just going to follow its natural course. I don't think there's any way we really can stop it. So that's the way we're going, folks, and there's very little we can do to stop it. The state of the world, folks, it really is chaotic. It's so much like a circus out there. People running around, nobody really knows what they're doing. As I said, it's like a monkey show. I don't see how we can ever change the direction we're going unless there is some type of mass epiphany. We're not going to get it from any type of political rhetoric or any type of political action. The whole political system is corrupt. So there is no remedy in that arena that will ever be found. The only remedy that will be found is when people are prepared to change what's in their hearts. And frankly, I don't see enough people doing that. It's just a sad reality to have to face, but it is a reality. And the best thing anybody can do, I would suggest, is to be the best person they can be, to establish good relations with people around them so that they have that support group to be able to get through what is coming. There's still a lot of good people in the world, folks, for all of the terrible stuff that's happening, for all of the infiltration of the truth movement, for all the infiltration into these activist movements. There's still good people. The problem is that we're looking for some sort of external savior, some sort of external source. We join these activist movements because we think the movement itself is going to bring about change. But really, as I said, it's the personal actions, the little things that we can each do every day in our own lives that makes a difference. Another thing is people's craving for information. More and more information. People want to know everything about everything, and they seem to want information. The information life can give them more than the wisdom that life can give them. And that's an important factor as well. The problem is that people are so lost and so disconnected from themselves that they look for gratification in these things. This is the crux of the whole thing, folks. This is the key to the whole problem, the loss of self. The fact that people are so disconnected from each other because they're so disconnected.
You cannot begin to imagine in how many ways the world is the opposite of what you have been taught to believe. You see the guy who sells drugs to willing customers so he can feed his family as the scum of the earth, while you see the hypocrite who gives away stolen money in the name of government as a saint. You see the guy who tries to avoid being robbed by the federal thugs as a crook and a tax cheat, but see as virtuous the politician who gives away the same stolen loot to people to whom it does not belong. You see the cop as a good guy when he drags a man away from his friends and family and throws him in prison for 10 years for smoking a leaf. And you see anyone who defends himself from such barbaric fascism as the lowest form of life, a cop killer. In reality, most drug dealers are more virtuous than any government social worker, and prostitutes have far less to be ashamed of than political whores, because they trade only with what is rightfully theirs, and only with those who want to trade with them. The upstanding, church-going, law-abiding, tax-paying citizen who votes Democrat or Republican is far more despicable and a bigger threat to humanity than the most promiscuous, lazy, drug-snorting hippie. Why? Because the hippie is willing to let others be free, and the voter is not. The damage done to society by bad habits and loose morality is nothing compared to the damage done to society by the self-righteous violence committed in the name of the state. You imagine yourselves to be charitable and tolerant when you are nothing of the sort. Even the Nazis had table manners and proper etiquette when they weren't killing people. You think you're good people because you say please and thank you? You think sitting in that big building on Sunday makes you noble and righteous? The difference between you and a common thief is that the thief has the honesty to commit the crime himself, while you whine for government to do your stealing for you. The difference between you and the street thug is that the thug is open about the violence he commits, while you let others forcibly control your neighbors on your behalf. You advocate theft, harassment, assault, and even murder, but accept no responsibility for doing so. You old folks want the government to steal from your kids so you can get your monthly check. You parents want all your neighbors to be robbed to pay for your kids' schooling. You all vote for whichever crook promises to steal money from other people to pay for what you want. You demand that those people who engage in behaviors you don't approve of be dragged off and locked up, but feel no guilt for the countless lives your whims have destroyed. You even call the government thugs your representatives, and yet you never take responsibility for the evil they commit. You proudly support the troops as they kill whomever the liars in D.C. tell them to kill, and you feel good about it. You call yourselves Christians or Jews or claim to follow some other religion, but the truth is what you call your religion is empty window dressing. What you truly worship, the God you really bow to, what you really believe in is the state. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder, unless you can do it by way of government. Then it's just fine, isn't it? If you call it taxation and war, it stops being a sin, right? After all, it was only your God that said you shouldn't steal and murder, but the state said it was okay. It's pretty obvious which one outranks the other in your minds. Despite all the churches, synagogues, and mosques we see around us, this nation has one God and only one God, and that God is called government. Jesus taught nonviolence and told you to love your neighbor, but the state encourages you to vote for people who will use the violence of government to butt into every aspect of everyone else's life. Which do you believe? To those about to stone a woman who had committed adultery, Jesus said, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." But the state says it's perfectly fine to lock someone up if they do something you find distasteful, such as prostitution. Which do you believe? The Christian God says, "Thou shalt not covet," but coveting is the lifeblood of the beast that is the state. You are taught to resent, despise, and hate anyone who has anything you don't have. You clamor for the state to tear other people down, steal their property, and give it to you. And you call that fairness. The Bible calls it coveting and stealing. You are not Christians. You are not Jews. You are not Muslims. And you certainly aren't atheists. You all have the same God, and its name is government. You're all members of the most evil, insane, destructive cult in history. If there ever was a devil, the state is it, and you worship it with all your heart and soul. You pray to it to solve every problem, to satisfy all your needs, to smite your enemies, and to shower its blessings upon you. You worship what Nietzsche called the coldest of all cold monsters, and you hate those of us who don't. To you, the greatest sin is disobeying your God, breaking the law, you call it, as if anyone could possibly have any moral obligation to obey the arbitrary commands and demands of the corrupt, lying, delusional megalomaniacs who infest this despicable town. Even your ministers, priests, and rabbis, more often than not, are traitors to their own religions, teaching that the commands of human authority should supersede adherence to the laws of the gods they say they believe in. Several years ago, I heard one pompous evangelical jackass in particular pontificating on the radio that anyone who disobeys the civil authority, be it a king or any other government, is engaging in rebellion against God. Those were the exact words he used. What if the government is doing something wrong? Well, this salesman for Satan opined, that is the business of those in government, and you are still obligated to obey. Everywhere you turn, be it the state or the church, the media or the schools, you are taught one thing above all else: the virtue of subjugating yourselves to mortals who claim to have the right to rule you. It is sickening the reverence with which you speak of the liars and thieves whose feet are so firmly planted on your necks. You call the congressmen and the judges honorable, and you swoon at the magnificence of the grandiose halls they inhabit, the temples they built to celebrate the domination of mankind. You feel pride at being able to say you once shook a senator's hand or saw the president in person. Ah, yes, the grand deity himself, His Royal Highness, the President of the United States of America. You speak the title as if you're referring to God Almighty. The vocabulary has changed a bit, but your mindset is no different from that of the groveling peasants of old who bowed low, faces in the dirt, with a feeling of unworthiness and humility when in the presence of whatever narcissist had declared himself to be their rightful lord and master. The truth of the matter, back then and today, is that these parasites who call themselves leaders are not superior beings. They are not great men and women. They are not honorable. They're not even average. The people who earn an honest living, from sophisticated millionaire entrepreneurs to illiterate day laborers doing the most menial tasks you can imagine, those people deserve your respect. Those people you should treat with courtesy and civility. But the frauds who claim the right to rule you and demand your subservience and obedience, they deserve only your scorn and contempt. Those who seek so-called high office are the lowest of the low. They may dress better, have larger vocabularies, and do a better job of planning out and executing their schemes, but they are no better than pickpockets, muggers, and carjackers. In fact, they are worse, because they don't want to rob you of just your possession. They want to rob you of your very humanity, deprive you of your free will, by slowly leeching away your ability to think, to judge, to act, reducing you to slaves in both body and mind. And still you persist in calling them leaders. Leaders? Where is it that you think you're going exactly that would require you to have a leader? If you just live your own life and mind your own damn business, exercising your own talents, pursuing your own dreams, striving to be what you believe you should be, what possible use would you have for a leader? Do you ever actually think about the words that you hear, the words that you repeat? You parrot oxymoronic terms such as the leader of the free world, even pretending for a moment that there is some huge journey or some giant battle that everyone in the entire nation is undertaking together that would require a leader. Why would you ever think, even for a moment, that the crooks that infest this town are the sort of people you should listen to or emulate or follow anywhere? Somewhere inside your mostly dormant brains, you know full well that politicians are all corrupt liars and thieves, opportunistic con men, exploiters, and fearmongers. You know all this, and yet you still speak as if you are the ones who are the stupid, vicious animals, while the politicians are the great, wise role models, teachers, and leaders without whom civilization could not exist. You think these crooks are the ones who make civilization possible? What belief could be more absurd? Yet when they do their pseudo-religious rituals, deciding how to control you this week, you still call it law, and continue to treat their arbitrary demands as if they were moral decrees from the gods that no decent person would ever consider disobeying. You have become so thoroughly indoctrinated into the cult of state worship that you are truly shocked when the occasional sane person states the bleeding obvious. The mere fact that the political crooks wrote something down and declared their threats to be law does not mean that any human being anywhere has the slightest moral obligation to obey. every moment of every day, in every location and every situation, you have a moral obligation to do what you deem to be right, not what some delusional bloated windbag says is legal. And that requires you to first determine right and wrong for yourself, a responsibility you spend much time and effort trying to dodge. You proclaim how proud you are to be law-abiding citizens and express your utter contempt for anyone who considers himself above your so-called laws, laws that are nothing more than the selfish whims of tyrants and thieves. The word crime once meant an act harmful to another person. Now it means disobedience to any one of the myriad of arbitrary commands coming from a parasitical criminal class. To you, the term crime is nearly synonymous with the word sin, implying that the ones whose commands are being disobeyed must be something akin to gods, when in truth they are more akin to leeches. The very phrase, taking the law into your own hands, perfectly expresses what a sacrilege it is in your eyes for a mere human being to take upon himself the responsibility to judge right from wrong and to act accordingly, instead of doing what you do, unthinkingly obeying whatever capricious commands this cesspool of maggots spews forth. You glorify this criminal class as lawmakers and believe that no one is lower than a lawbreaker, someone who would dare disobey the politicians. Likewise, you speak with pious reverence of law enforcers, those who forcibly impose the politicians' every whim upon the rest of us. When the state uses violence, you imagine it to be inherently righteous and just, and if anyone resists, they are, in your eyes, contemptible lowlifes, lawless terrorist criminals. Like the lawless terrorist criminals who helped slaves escape the plantations. Like the lawless terrorist criminals who helped Jews escape the killing machine of the Third Reich. Like the lawless terrorist criminals who were crushed to death under the tanks of the Red Chinese government in Tiananmen Square. Like all the lawless terrorist criminals in history who had the courage to disobey the never-ending stream of tyrants and oppressors who have called their violence authority and law. And that includes the lawless terrorist criminals who founded this country. Everything you think you know is upside down, backwards, and inside out. But what has to take the cake, the height of your insanity, is the fact that you view as violent terrorists the only people on the planet who oppose the initiation of violence against their fellow men. Anarchists, voluntarists, and libertarians. We use violence only to defend ourselves against someone who initiates violence against us. We use it for nothing else. Meanwhile, your belief system is completely schizophrenic and self-contradictory. On the one hand, you teach the young slaves that violence is never the answer. Yet out of the other side of your mouths, you advocate that everyone and everything, everywhere and at all times be controlled, monitored, taxed, and regulated through the force of government. In short, you are teaching your children that the masters may use violence whenever they please, but the slave should never resist. You indoctrinate your children into a life of unthinking, helpless subservience. You are putting the chains around their little necks and fastening the locks tight. And worst of all, you feel good about it. Out of one side of your mouths, you condemn the evils of fascism and socialism and lament the injustices of the regimes of Hitler, Stalin, and Mao. While out of the other side of your mouths, you preach exactly what they did. The worship of the collective, the subjugation of every individual to that evil insanity that wears the deceptive label, the common good. You babble on and on about diversity and open-mindedness, and then beg your masters to regulate and control every aspect of everyone's lives, creating a giant herd of unthinking conformist drones. You wear different clothes and have different hairstyles, and you think that makes you different. Yet all your minds are enslaved to the same club of masters and controllers. You think what they tell you to think and do what they tell you to do while imagining yourselves to be progressive, thinking, and enlightened. From your position of relative comfort and safety, you now condemn the evils of other lands and other times while turning a blind eye to the injustices happening right in front of you. You tell yourself that had you lived in those other places, in those other times, you would have been among those who stood up against oppression and defended the downtrodden. But that is a lie. You would have been right there with the rest of the flock of well-trained sheep, loudly demanding that the slaves be beaten, that the witches be burned, that the nonconformists and rebels be destroyed. How do I know this? Because that is exactly what you are doing today. Today's injustices and oppressions are fashionable and popular, and those who resist them, you tell yourselves, are just malcontents and freaks, people whose rights don't matter, people who deserve to be crushed under the boot of authority. Isn't that right? You bunch of spineless, unthinking hypocrites, look in the mirror. Take a good look at what you imagine to be righteous and kind. You are the devil's plaything. The crowds of thousands wildly applauding the speeches of Adolf Hitler, that was you. The mob demanding that Jesus Christ be nailed to the cross, that was you. The white invaders who celebrated the wholesale slaughter of those godless redskins, that was you. The throngs filling the Colosseum, applauding as the Christians were fed to the lions, that was you. Throughout history, the perpetual suffering and injustice occurring on an incomprehensible scale, it was all because of people just like you. The well-trained, thoroughly indoctrinated conformists, the people who do as they're told, who proudly bow to their masters, who follow the crowd, believing what everyone else believes and thinking whatever authority tells them to think. That is you. And your ignorance is not because the truth is not available to you. There have been radicals preaching it for thousands of years. No, you are ignorant because you shun the truth with all your heart and soul.
Okay, now I will talk a little bit about what I've learned from psychedelics. I feel self-conscious doing it, but on the other hand, wouldn't it be stupid for me to talk about what you've learned from psychedelics? That would add presumption to the sins already arrayed here. There are different models about what the psychedelic experience is. Here's a couple. Building on Western psychotherapy as elaborated by Freud and Jung, one view of what psychedelics are is it's the part of your mind that you'd rather not do business with. It's the memories of childhood neglect or abuse. It's repressed, kinky fantasies. It's, in other words, the Freudian idea of the unconscious, that somehow these are drugs which dissolve the boundary between conscious and unconscious mind, and then you can do accelerated psychotherapy because resistances have been pharmacologically overcome. That's one model. It's good as far as it goes. It just doesn't go far enough. Then there's another model, which I would call the traditional or shamanic model. And it says the cosmos is a series of levels, and these levels are connected by vertical routes of access, which can be thought of as simply flights through space, or magical trees, or magical ladders. Anyway, there's an image of ascent. And ordinary people exist on only one of these levels. But a shaman is not an ordinary person. A shaman is a superhuman person who has the power of animal allies behind them, and they can go up and down in these elevators that move between levels, and they can therefore recover lost souls, see social hanky-panky, theft and adultery, see the causes behind that, see the causes behind disease, so forth and so on. That would be the traditional one. What I have concluded after 25 years of fiddling with this is that both of those ideas have a certain something to recommend them, but that they don't go far enough, and that we get more to the meat of this if we leave off psychological, the first explanation, or sociological, the second explanation, and actually go for something a little more formal, to wit, a mathematical model of what shamanism is. And what I mean by that is, let's think about what shamans do. They cure disease, and another way of putting that is they have a remarkable facility for choosing patients who will recover. They predict weather, they're very important. They tell where game has gone, the movement of game, and they seem to have an paranormal ability to look into questions, as I mentioned, who's sleeping with who stole the chicken, social transgressions are an open book to them. Well, thinking about this from a mathematician's point of view, an all-encompassing explanation that would explain how all these magical feats are done is simply to suppose that the shaman is somehow able to project his consciousness, his or her consciousness, into a higher dimension. Not metaphorically, as in Sylvester Stallone has many dimensions, not metaphorically, but literally, as in 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimensions, and 4. Because if you could move into the 4th dimension, the dimension orthogonal to Newtonian space-time, seeing what the weather is going to be next week is as easy as seeing what the weather is now. Seeing where the game went is as easy as seeing where the game are. Knowing who stole the chicken is simply defined by looking to see who stole the chicken. And I have noticed that all of biology, not simply shamanism within the context of human society, but all of biology is, in a sense, a conquest of dimensionality. That as we ascend the phylogeny of organic life, what animals are a strategy for conquering space-time. And complex animals do it better than simpler animals. And we do it better than any complex animal. And we 20th century people do it better than any people in any previous century, because we can bind data in so many ways that they couldn't, electronically, on film, on tape, so forth and so on. So the progress of organic life is deeper and deeper into dimensional conquest. Well, from that point of view, then, the shaman begin to look like the advance guard of a new kind of human being. A human being that is as advanced over where we are as we are advanced over people 1 million years ago, because we have very elaborate strategies for coding the past. It's a dimensional conquest. So that's part of what I've learned about psychedelics. And I could have left it there, but I never do. I always want to bring more in under the umbrella of whatever metaphor it is that's being pushed. And what I have discerned is that time is actually speeding up, that the universe is not what physics tells us it is. Physics tells us that the universe is a physical system, an entropic system that was born in immense energy and chaos and will run down with a bang, with a whimper, not a bang, run down into heat entropy. The psychedelic data on this is completely different. The psychedelic data says what that model left out was biology and mind. Now, biology, you might imagine, is a fairly ephemeral, recent, fragile phenomenon. It is not. The average star in this galaxy gutters out after about 700 million years. Not our star. We happen to have the good fortune to be around a very stable, slow-burning star. But there has been biology on this planet at least 2 billion years, 3 times the average life of a star. So biology is not some Johnny-come-lately epiphenomena. Biology is a phenomenon more persistent than the life of the stars themselves. And biology is not a static thing. A star evolving now is not greatly different from a star evolving 1 billion years ago. Biology doesn't work that way. Biology constantly changes the context in which evolution occurs. The way I have downloaded this into a phrase is the universe is, the biological universe at least, is a novelty-conserving engine. Upon simple molecules are built complex molecules. Upon complex molecules are built complex polymers. Upon complex polymers comes DNA. Out of DNA comes the whole machinery of the cell. Out of cells comes simple aggregate colony animals like Hydra and that sort of thing. Out of that, true animals. Out of that, ever more complex animals, organs of locomotion, organs of sight, organs of smell, complex mental machinery for the coordinating of data in time and space. This is the whole story of the advancement of life. And in our species, it reaches its culmination and it crosses over into a new domain where change no longer occurs in the atomic and biological machinery of existence. It begins to take place in this world which we call mental. It's called epigenetic change, change which cannot be traced back to mutation of the arrangements of molecules inside long-chain polymers, but change taking place in syntactical structures that are linguistically based. And people have probably been using language with considerable facility for probably 50,000 years, possibly more. In our own time, we have created ever more elaborate languages, ever more elaborate technologies for transforming, storing, and retrieving language, so that we are actually on the brink, of being able to give every single
I don't know
one
how
of
good this is
you
going to come out on
the
film,
complete
but here in
cultural
Oaxaca,
inventory.
this is the most splendid thing I've ever seen in my life. There's the beautiful moon. Go out and have a look at it if you are there listening. Go out and you will see the ring of the moon. Why is it empty? Why? Because it is a portal. The moon is a portal. It's a wormhole. Souls are said to come through the moon. The moon is the ovaries of the solar system. This is where you come from. Above the moon is Jupiter. Brilliant. Just above Jupiter, I'm going to try and get this, is Saturn. There you go. There you go. Praise the Lord, hallelujah. I'm sitting on my third story veranda here in Puerto Morelos, enjoying my beautiful, beautiful evening. And it is just exquisite. There you go, guys. Right now, I think there's a little bit of cloud. No, there's not. There it is. There's Saturn. You can clearly see Saturn. That's about a 5-degree orb. Jupiter and Saturn are both on 29 degrees Capricorn. In 6 days, they will be at 0 degrees Aquarius. Bang, the age of Aquarius. There's the moon. The moon is going to be, let's see, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. The moon will be in Aries, I think. Check it out, guys. I don't know. I haven't even checked. I haven't even looked at the day to see where the moon is. Fancy that. Come on, focus. It's not focusing. It will, Aries. Thanks, Crackerjack Matt. Thank you. It will be in Aries, my sign. Did you hear that? Oh, man. Now it's out of focus. Why? There it is. Okay, it must be the Wi-Fi I'm using out here. There it is. There's Saturn. Saturn's on top of Jupiter. But that's Jupiter. Jupiter is the 4th brightest luminary. Venus is 3rd. Moon 2nd. Sun, the king. And Venus is able to cast a shadow. She's the 3rd and only object, I would say body, in this heavens that can cast a shadow on the earth. There it is, guys. In 6 days, both those two boys, father and son, Kronos and Zeus, Saturn and Jupiter. It's always Woden and frickin' okay, Horus and Set. That's it. That's who it is. We're talking about Horus and Set. They're coming together. And this is history. It's history in the making. There's the moon going beyond the trees. Let me see if I can get where can we get a spot? Oh no, it's going down over the moon, over the trees. Right next to me is a crocodile. I live pretty much in the mangroves. And so there's watery trees all around and there's a crocodile. So every now and then we feed it and it's great. And we've also got animals called serequeres, is that right? Julieta? What's the animal called? Serequeres? El animal que está aquí abajo. No, los animales, no. Los otros, como serequeres. Sereques, okay. Look up that word, sereques. There are sereques in the swamps here. It's beautiful. Sereques. Mahalo, Rebecca. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the encouragement and compliments. That is exquisite. That is exquisite. That is exquisite. There they are, father and son. They once Jupiter castrated Saturn, Saturn castrated Uranus. So there's a war between these gods. One is benefic, one is malefic. So when they come together, they cancel each other's benefic and malefic energy and they neutralize. So this is a neutral coming together. It's splendid. The declination is a little bit off. See, this is 0, they are 0 degrees right ascension, but because they're not on top of each other, the declination along the ecliptic is different. It's obviously Saturn is positive. Saturn is like about, I don't know, 1 degree, I would say 1 degree positive declination. Is there anyone out there who can check that, please? Check the declination of Saturn and Jupiter right now, please. Because I can't hold this much longer. My neck's hurting. My neck is hurting. I did a big workout today and all my muscles are sore. I'm working out every day. Yes, broadcast music, 12:21, coming fast. Julieta, can you please hold this, please? You do it. You do it. My neck is hurting. Nice and still. Julieta is my beautiful partner, by the way. She's Mexican, and I did update my Facebook profile today. I am in a relationship with a beautiful woman. The gods have blessed me. I'm in my Venus Mahadasha, so you can only expect me to be very, 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 very happy. See, it's going out of focus, and the moon is... Where can we go? Let's see if I can stand up on this chair. Yep, come here, give it to me. Right, I'm standing up on a chair just to give you a bit more of this. Oh my God, nearly fell off. This is embarrassing. Oh, the clothesline's wrecking it. But anyway, there it is. Glorious, guys. I think that'll be enough for me, because I want to go out and have some dinner. I'm hungry. Good night to everybody. Much, much, much love. I'll probably try and do a live of this on the 21st. Here from Mexico, Quint.
This whole stuff Never say you can't do something, or that something seems impossible, or that something can't be done, no matter how discouraging or harrowing it may be. Human beings are limited only by what we allow ourselves to be limited by, our own minds. We are each the masters of our own reality. When we become self-aware to this, absolutely anything in the world is possible. Master yourself, become the king of the world around you. Let no odds, chastisement, exile, doubt, fear, or any mental virus prevent you from accomplishing your dreams. Never be a victim of life. Mike Norton. The thing is that we are all victims of this society. Essentially we are. Our education system, the way we're kept permanently in debt, everything that this system does to curtail human potential is there. One of the most uncomfortable issues for them to face. The reality is that there's a great many people who go through this existence living their life as a victim. And if you look a little deeper, what you find is that in such cases, people are generally victims of themselves during their own lives. I mean, sure, we tend to judge other people through our lives because we're programmed to do it, but we very often don't notice just how much we are judging ourselves along the way. But you get to a point in life where you think, why does everything go wrong? It's a kind of a love-hate relationship that you develop with yourself during the youthful part of your life. Very often people develop this type of relationship with themselves, unless they can go and immerse themselves in some business or some company or some career or apprenticeship or whatever, to gain that sort of focus and have that goal to achieve. Many people who go through school and think that all of this stuff's meaningless and it's really all about living the life, generally get to a point halfway through their life or through their youth where they really wonder what it's about and wonder if they're simply a misfit and perhaps they should have gone and got that career that all their friends were getting in high school. Of course, many people don't pursue these careers because it just seems so wrong to them. It seems so unnatural. It feels to them that they are stepping so far off their path and they wonder why they should ever have to do such a thing. And so they go and step onto their path in life and they find some way of making it through. But then they find themselves struggling an inordinate amount compared to what their friends are, and they wonder if they made the right choice. This is sort of the situation that I was in when I was a teenager. I was working as a musician, but I was also wondering why I couldn't be like other people. And this is very often the case for most of the youth and even people early in adulthood they go through a certain crisis point where they really wonder if they are on the right path. And if you really step back and look at this, what you begin to realize is that all of this is due to programming. You know, when I was young, the invention of the television really changed life in my house. It really did. And when I look back on it and I see what television did to influence myself, to influence my family, and to influence people around us, it really is quite remarkable. You know, all of the social visions that I had of what society could be, all of these come from the television, and generally this will be the same for most people out there. Most of the standards that you set for yourself come from the images that are portrayed to you on television. You know, television portrays a very, very different world to the real world. You know, even when you're looking at a city on television, it just looks different on film. You know, you see a place on screen and they get it from the right camera angle and they get the people with the right lighting on them, and things look larger than life. They look too real to be real, and you find yourself immersed in situations more than you would be immersed in real life situations. And again, this is done usually from the lighting and the camera angles, and there's all sorts of subliminal programming that goes into the way they set these scenes up in the movies. And you'll find that just watching a movie that you don't even think has any programming in it, just watching some comedy show on TV, if you can really look at the subtext of the show, the comedy show or the movie or whatever it is you're watching, look at how the scenery is set up. Notice what's on the desks. Notice the furniture, the decorations in the rooms that they use. Notice the clothes people are wearing. Notice the body language when they interact with each other. And notice the underlying themes of the conversation, how they are influencing your thoughts and your opinions. The mainstream media has brought this to a fine art, for example. You notice when you watch the news, there's always two anchor people there. And when they have a story that is particularly interesting, at the end of the story, they'll have a little conversation with each other, a couple of quick quips. Someone may comment on, gee, what a terrible story that was, and how people must feel whatever about it. And the other anchor person will nod their agreement and have their little quip. And that will instill that mindset into the minds of the viewer and assure the viewer that this is the way they should also be thinking about this if they are to be perceived as an intelligent person. Because, of course, the newsreaders are very intelligent. I mean, look at them, the way they dress, and they sit there all prim and proper with their very nice news voices. And apart from the story that they have just given you, they've also given you their impression, and they present this vision of what society is and how you should think about what they just told you. And all of these things are designed to influence our view of the society around us, and essentially our view of ourselves. And this filters down into influencing how we judge ourselves and how we judge the people around us and the people we come into contact with. I mean, just look at the fashion that the young kids wear around today. There's always this need to fit into a certain group or fit into a certain scene or to make some type of individual statement. You know, people often believe they are the way they dress. That is who they are. This is my package. This is how I present myself. This is who I am. And very often they miss out on themselves along the way because they're attempting to be something that they're not. They think that they have to be something. They have to be this image of themselves that they have in their mind before they will be deemed successful according to their own standards. It's a weird kind of a programming that we put ourselves through, but what we do very often through all of this is we miss out on our lives. We miss out on the development of our true selves. And that is why we judge ourselves poorly, because we never reach these standards that we set for ourselves. We have this vision which is unobtainable, which comes from the television anyway. It's not who we are. And really, if we were just comfortable with who we are and we focused more on being that, we would find that we would probably be quite successful in our lives, because really, being who we are is what we came here to do, not all the other stuff. That's just a distraction, and that's why it's there. And many of these goals that we aspire to really don't mean anything anyway. We have all these visions of where we should be, but once we get there, we realize that it's really just the same as where we were. Now that we've got the golden egg, there's nothing really there, so we may as well have looked at ourselves for the journey anyway, and may as well have stayed on our own path. And that's what many people are afraid of doing when they're young, is staying on their own path and being true to who and what they are. You know, people judge themselves poorly because they have these visions of where they should be, but it's always according to someone else's parameters. So if you're in a situation in your life where you're having these doubts about yourself and about what you should be doing, about who you are, perhaps you just need to really look inside yourself and examine what you really want to do. Because what you want to do is what you
We're going to a different place, which is a new normal.
A new normal.
A new normal.
A new normal. A new normal.
New normal.
Embrace the new normal.
The new normal.
The new normal?
The new normal.
New normal.
This new normal is going to look very, very different.
Not normal, but a new normal.
The new normal.
New normal. There will be a new normal.
A new normal.
New normal.
A new normal.
The new normal.
A new normal.
This is the new normal.
This is our new normal.
Our new normal.
A new normal.
Our new normal.
New normal.
The new normal.
Our new normal.
We will transition into the new normal.
This will be the new normal until a vaccine is developed.
It's very hard to do something the first time. It is very easy to do something the second time.
What does a magician want you to do when he's doing a trick? He wants you to look at the hand that's not doing the trick, so you don't see the hand that's doing it.
They just want human consciousness to go in a certain way.
Problem, reaction, solution.
Problem, reaction, solution, ladies and gentlemen. That's how they do it.
You create the problem, you get the reaction from the public on the basis of the way you've explained the problem, which is not actually what happened, and then you offer created.
Something else that I said, problem, reaction, solution, was that the protests, they needed the protests in order to justify the second wave.
Bang! What's the matter? Protests, pulling down statues. The whole focus of attention has gone somewhere else. There are other reasons for that, but it's taken the focus away. When the real focus should be, look at the economic devastation of these lockdowns on every community. That should be the focus. This happened just at the right time that they wanted it, to get exactly the reaction that they wanted. So maybe there's more to know about this, and it's not just only what you see. And I think there is more to come out about all that. I really do.
It's kind of freaky, folks, you know, when you see that sort of stuff, you can see how long they've had this plan in the making. You know, World Economic Forum rolling out their whole plan to restructure the world, the Great Reset that we need to combat this terrible crisis and the terrible state of police brutality that we find ourselves in. Everything that these people who run the World Economic Forum have done, and now they're offering us their solution, which is to basically lock everybody into a smart prison.
The thing that'll get us back is the vaccine.
Until we have a vaccine.
Zero tolerance. So every time we see a case, we basically pounce on it.
A vaccine.
A vaccine.
The vaccine.
The vaccine.
To all 7 billion people.
Almost every expert agrees a vaccine is the fastest way to get our world back.
You know, it's so important to get not just hundreds of millions, but literally billions of those vaccines.
Legislative amendments that would make vaccinations mandatory for public school students unless they have a medical exemption.
The vaccine is the thing that will change things.
The vaccine.
The vaccine.
On the issue of the vaccine, which you've said in the past could take a year to 18 months, will we have to wait for a vaccine to hug our family and friends who are outside of our bubble?
You know, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That will get attention this time.
They're really pushing the second wave. But this is just the beginning, folks. It's not going to go away. I said that months ago, this is not going to go away. They're going to release the lockdown a little bit, and then they're going to ramp it up even more. What they want to do, you know, the COVID pass that everybody needs to have to show they're infection-free, all the stuff they want to do. They're trialling it in Africa now. They're calling it a trust pass to make sure you're vaccinated. A vaccination record payment system is what they're talking about. This is the payment system. They want you to be scanned, retinal scanned, facial scanned, biometric scans, and that's how you're going to be paying. You won't need cash anymore. You won't even need your smartphone anymore. You will be paying with your face. And of course, you'll need a record of vaccination in order to enter the store to begin with.
A cashless economy where people make purchases with their faces. A giant network of surveillance cameras with facial recognition helps police monitor citizens.
Ready for the new era of Big Brother? This time the super surveillance may be for your own good.
A couple of years ago, I did a show called Giving Life to Lucifer, when I talked about the whole rollout of this smart grid, the AI system. And I said that in 2025, we are set to be in a very, very different reality to what we are now. By 2025, the whole system will be controlled by AI. That's the way it's going. If you can understand AI, and you can understand that AI is working to gain control for itself, then you understand how these computer models work and why they're so over the top, and so the figures were so wrong. But if you can think of a way of controlling and corralling human beings, then it all begins to make sense. It doesn't matter if the figures are wrong. They just want human consciousness to go in a certain way, and they want to merge us with the machine. And the question is, who is they? And when you look at it, folks, it's like they is now AI. The AI is already there. We're waiting for artificial intelligence to emerge, but really it's already emerged, folks. It's already there online. We're just not looking at things the right way. And what it's doing is it's basically creating a system whereby we are going to be completely dependent upon artificial intelligence in order to survive, in order to perform everyday activities, even going outside and purchasing a meal. You're going to need the whole thing controlled by artificial intelligence to be able to move through that reality, through the new world they're creating. When you look at things such as the Industrial Revolution, and you look at the periodic changes that society goes through every 50 to 100 years, even more so every 200 years, there's always a birth of a new reality comes from the one before, a new beginning, if you will. But what is the new beginning we're moving into? It's really going to be a reality that is totally controlled by AI, if we're not careful. The politicians, I don't even think the politicians know exactly what they're doing. I think too many people who've been involved in setting this up really bargained for what they were going to be getting. It's like all the rock stars and the pop stars and all the superstars and all the sports stars and all these people that have kept society distracted for so many years. I said to you a few weeks ago, the Miley Cyruses and the Madonnas and all these people have been used to keep us distracted. They're all finding themselves on equal par now. That video that Madonna did in the bath when she was saying, wow, we're all equal now. If one goes down, we all go down. It's synonymous with the whole of society. Because all the people, all the rock stars and all the people that they paid all these exorbitant amount of money to keep us distracted, they don't care about them. They're all going down too. I said that a few weeks ago. It'd be a bit of a shock for these people to find themselves all locked in their own houses, all having to deal with social distancing. Forget all that rock star world, all the pop star world, concerts and sports games and all that sort of stuff. It's not going to happen, folks. It's not going back to normal. People think that, this is just a temporary thing. No, it's not. There's also a new action called Protect Our Neighbours, folks. They're wonderful, aren't they? They want you to spy on your neighbours, basically, folks. Like I said, all the sleeping masses are the ones who are going to drag us into this if we're not careful. So there's now a new program whereby you can protect your neighbours by keeping an eye on them and making sure they're social distancing. Basically spying on them and dobbing them in if they're doing the wrong thing under the guise of protecting them. Now is the time for everybody to realise that, there's a war being waged against us. And we have a lot of tools that we can use to fight this war, and we can fight on the digital battlefield. Hit Twitter, hit Facebook, hit everywhere you can. Do everything you can to get the word out to people, folks, because there's nothing more important than this issue. Our whole world is changing. It's not going to go back. We're at a time in history where we find ourselves on the front line, all of us. We're on the front line here, folks. That's the thing. A lot of people just don't realise World War III has already started. It's a war that's being waged against the people of the world by the politicians of the world. The problem is that people don't realise it's happening. This response to this this social isolation, this removal of even our oxygen. We're not wearing masks. This is such, folks. Like I said, it's complete. Everything they're doing to us is to make us sick, folks. And that will be your second wave. You know, the second wave will be fear and paranoia driven more than anything else. I mean, the first wave is fear and paranoia driven. I mean, how can they even have a second wave? There wasn't a first wave. There hasn't ever been a. It's all been about this legislation. It's all been about this police state. The whole thing, ladies and gentlemen, these parasitic morons that we have masquerading as government. What matters is that we realize what's happening and we realize the steps we need to take to get ourselves out of what's happening. You know, the steps we need to take to find freedom again. You know, everything about this system is designed to make you pull back from life. Exactly as John Lennon said in that quote. You know, we live in a system that has its foundation in fear-based mind control. And it is this fear that causes people to pull back from life all the time. And great things have been achieved by those who embrace life. Indeed, all of the great things that have been achieved in history have been achieved by those who embrace life. And everything about this system is designed to prevent us doing that. I mean, sure, we're given certain pleasures we can pursue, certain enjoyment zones we can go and participate in and all that sort of stuff. We're given things to do, but is that really what it's all about? Is that really how you participate in life? Because life isn't really about working and then going to the designated enjoyment zones. Life is about excelling. Life is about experiencing the art of being you. But everything about this system detracts us from that path. You know, even the spiritual paths that we get led down are usually circular paths that lead us into a little blind